We took this approach where we said, look, we're engineers, we're product people by DNA. We can try this. Like we tried this sales things. We tried closing our own deals in the beginning, but ultimately we realized, is this the type of company we want to build right here, right now?
In part one of my conversation with Krishna Ramineni, the co-founder and CEO of Fireflies, he told us about his efforts to create a virtual assistant that takes notes at your meetings and can even attend them without you. In this second part of our conversation, Krish talks about what it was like moving out to San Francisco to start a company with no experience and no connections, and why he decided not to raise VC funding initially. He also shares some of his personal philosophy on exactly what a company should focus on when bringing a product from idea to market. All right, Krish, I'm excited to continue our conversation and now to hear more about the journey that you've been on this past, 4 years? First off, is this the first company that you've led?
Yeah, this is the first company that I've led. So we're about 20 people now. And I'm a first-time founder, first-time CEO running this. Same with my co-founder, who actually has not worked at a formal company before. So I've worked at Microsoft as a product manager before, but my co-founder was coming straight out of college. He had interned at a couple different places, but we are pretty new to the field, right? We're not experienced veterans at a large technology company or corporation of any sort. And that also helps us in terms of the culture we build, the processes that we set up inside Fireflies. And one of the interesting things is we're building meeting software. The reason we're building meeting software is because we hate meetings ourselves. It's funny we say that, like, shouldn't you love meetings? No, we hate meetings. That's why we built Fireflies. And here's the reason why. With Fireflies and it being on meetings, you get to attend less meetings if you don't need to, and you don't have to have the same repeat meetings over and over and again, talking about the same things. So once I go to a meeting and I share something important, it gets crystallized and it gets saved. And if someone needs to refer to that, they can go back to it. So if I'm doing training for my new folks, or if we're onboarding new folks, everything is essentially documented in a way so that I don't have to repeat myself again. So that's super important to me, and that's part of the culture. And one of the things we saw with interning and working in the corporate segment is you're having the same sort of redundant meetings and work being done over and over again. So from our journey perspective, we've been at this. We're first-time founders, first time really running an organization of any sort.
Over the past 4 years, I imagine there were some key data points that happened where you had to overcome a hurdle that maybe you can share a tactic of how you were able to make it work with another entrepreneur. When you look back maybe to funding, you were VC funded, correct?
Yeah.
Getting that initial funding, can you share any insight or tips or thoughts on how you were able to make that happen?
Honestly, we were just a couple kids that just came out to SF, didn't know what it was like to raise money or be in the Valley, because ultimately we didn't have that network or connections. We had a great, I think, college and alumni network that was helpful, like ex-MIT, ex-Penn, where I went. But in general, we didn't know the people that you needed to know to be successful here. And I think one of the things is your network really does matter, especially if you're, want to be a VC-backed company. So either you have a great network, you can go out and raise a big round immediately because of, your credentials as an exec from a company or someone that is well connected and well established, or you have to be able to go grind it out, build the technology, validate it, maybe go through an accelerator like Y Combinator to get that backing, or be able to just show pure traction and be able to raise through that route.
It is possible to stay lean, focus on the product, keep growing it, and it doesn't have to be immediately backed with a big VC fund, but it does help to then scale. Now, speaking of scale, since the last year or so, what kind of tactics have worked in order to scale?
Yeah. So when I came here, one of the things that I've learned is everyone has a certain model in terms of how they run companies that are extremely successful. Some models that people use and adopt are, inside sales models where before you even really have a fully fleshed out product, you hire a bunch of salespeople and then you start having them call and start, selling the product, right? So that model works, especially if you're doing light inside sales. We took this approach where we said, look, we're engineers, we're product people by DNA. We can try this. Like we tried this sales things. We tried closing our own deals in the beginning, but ultimately we realized, is this the type of company we want to build right here, right now? And I think salespeople are extremely valuable. But for the type of company we wanted to build something that was extremely transparent, both in terms of pricing, being able to get people to adopt the platform, reduce as much friction as possible so that people can actually use it. And I didn't want the glue to be salespeople. The reason is if you have a really good salesperson, they'll be able to kind of, gloss over all the issues with your product. And instead, we wanted those issues to be pointed out to us. We wanted people to say, why is your onboarding confusing? Or why am I not able to upgrade here? Or why am I not able to see this bug? And so we want all the raw feedback. I still respond to customer support tickets today, even though we have a fully dedicated customer support team. Our engineers are involved. I am literally going through every single ticket. If someone churns because something wasn't working for them, I personally reach out or I look and I follow up with our team. So for me and my co-founder, the type of company we wanted to build was something that was extremely self-serve oriented. If you wanted to get started with Fireflies, you should be able to go do that without having to set up any sort of fancy demo and be able to handle it.
For moving forward now from here, you've got the user base, and if anything, the propellant on the fire here because of COVID. What kind of hurdles do you see you're going to need to overcome now to get to the next level that you're looking to get?
I think with the customer base that we have a lot of small, medium-sized teams, SMBs that use the product today. And naturally, we see Fireflies getting pulled into enterprises, right? Like Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 1000 companies. And the use cases, the requirements, the use cases might be the same, but the requirements might be fundamentally different, right? They need more access management. They need more control as administrators. So we're learning right now, right? We're not ready to just jump up and go up market all of a sudden, but we're learning a lot of the requirements that a lot of these bigger companies need in order to roll out Fireflies more successfully. So for me, understanding where's that gap between where we are today and what it would take for a larger organization to adopt us is going to be something that is important and is always top of mind. But in general, right now, we're just in operational mode, just focusing on our customers. The market might be changing. There might be other companies coming out, but ultimately you can really instead tune into your customers, understand what they want, and build something that is of value that sets you apart. Like you're not even on the same axis as other companies that are coming in and you're being compared to. And so there's just a lot we can do for our existing customers that we're really tapping into. And over time, we hope to be able to serve teams that are much larger, right? And I think this is a natural growing phase for all types of companies, even Slack. It was great when it started out for small teams, because when Slack was small, it was great for small teams. And then as Slack grew, they started having bigger organizations use it. They realized, oh, we need to do these things to help them onboard. So for us, I think it's just really tuning into our customers and our needs and how we scale from our small, medium-sized businesses and teams that are using it to larger customers.
What kind of tech innovations do you predict we will see in the near term, next year or so, and long term, next 5-10 years? Overall tech predictions.
I think there's a theme that I would stick with rather than technology predictions, because it's much harder to gauge where software, robotics, hardware is going. But I like to look at, from a first principles point of view, where are we making massive improvements that is going to change the way people work. And my expertise has been in workplace software, and I build and I work in that sector of collaboration software. So thinking about that, the trends and themes that I think about is automation is going to be a big aspect of the work that we do today. And so robotic process automation, RPA, companies like UiPath, Automation Anywhere, even Microsoft recently acquiring a company to help with that RPA segment, is a huge trend that I see going forward. And there are certain folks that are going to feel like, hey, this is going to take away jobs, but there's going to be other folks that are also going to see that as, wow, this is going to open up new opportunities to do more meaningful work in the office versus, moving certain spreadsheets to another spreadsheet or copying and pasting cells into another system. So RPA is something that I'm really fascinated about, that I keep in perspective. The other thing about RPA and the way I kind of look at it is all the robotic process automation that's happening today is using visual cues on your screen. But we're doing something very similar from a voice perspective, right? What I call almost like VPA, right, is like voice process automation, where I can say something in a meeting like this, and then the work gets done, right? Hey, schedule another meeting with Alex next week, Fireflies, at 3 p.m. PST. It should be created in my calendar. Or I say something and it gets created as a task inside Salesforce. So I think voice process automation is something that I want to invest in and see where that goes. I don't think there's anything related to that. There's no category related to that, but that's something that I personally am invested in learning about. The other things is, we mentioned this earlier, but collaboration software, where it is today versus where it was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, has enabled our companies and organizations to move super seamlessly into this remote 24/7 work from home model. And I think great video conferencing, great internet connection, all these things play a key role in being able to do that. Being able to work asynchronously is such a huge aspect across different time zones and so forth. So that is another area that I'm a big believer in, is collaboration software. It's only going to grow, and you are going to have different software that caters to different needs. I don't think there's going to be a monopoly on these things, right? If you look at collaboration landscape as a whole, you have the Dropboxes of the world, you have the Boxes of the world that build similar technology but have fundamental different needs that they solve. Tools today that a lot of folks that I know use, Airtable, Notion, Monday.com, these all-in-one collaboration solutions. You might stop and ask, like, why are like 3 tools that are very similar, why do they have like such great popularity, right? And so it's really interesting to kind of think about why that happens, right? And I think it's because each of them solves a different need for their specific customers. And you're going to constantly see new technologies that come through from that space. So there's one tool that I've been hearing a lot about called Roam Research, which lets you, right, it's like reinventing note-taking from the way you type notes. And it's almost like a wiki / Evernote fusion. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. So people are always going to constantly improve on the existing tools that are out there. And then the third piece that I'm really interested in is, from a consumer perspective, we've exhausted all the channels. We've exhausted text, right, with Twitter and Facebook, and we've exhausted video and like short ephemeral messaging through Snapchat. And now voice could be something that's really interesting, where that's one area or we haven't really tapped into. We are seeing the rise of podcasting and people listening to podcasts on the go. So the reason voice is super interesting to me is it's something you can consume in a reactive way. You can consume it in a passive manner, where you don't have to be tuned into the video. You don't have to be tuned into reading the text, but you could be going to the gym and listening to a podcast. You can listen to someone talk. So I believe those 3 trends are something that I'm seeing from a behavioral perspective. And also the technology is lining up to enable those aspects.
Have you seen a company using AI, machine learning, or other technology to transform the way we live, work, and do business? Go to uptechreport.com and let us know.